Hello game fans and welcome to the Steam Chamber. As many of you may know, last week, and last weekend, was the Eurogamer Expo in London at Earl's Court, and me and Dave from the Steam Chamber and from Gamergeddon.com went along for a day or two to go and check out some of the indie titles there, as well as check out some of the other stuff such as the consoles and Battlefield 4. But of course we focused mainly on stuff that was either on Steam, on Greenlight, or was actively seeking to get onto Steam. So there were quite a lot of little indie titles and quite a few titles in the res section that we got to check out. There probably weren't as many as there would usually be, as this year, of course, was the unveiling and the playing of the new consoles in the form of the Xbox One and the PlayStation 4. So, of course, they took up a lot of show space. And as for AAA titles, if a company's going to try and show its AAA title at a expo when there's new consoles around, then they're going to try and show them on the new consoles, because they don't want to lose out the opportunity to get people playing them. So there perhaps weren't as many indie titles as there might have been otherwise. However, there was still plenty to look at. And as I say, we looked at a hell of a lot, spoke to a hell of a lot of devs and a lot of PR people, and secured some review codes and some interviews and such, and got quite a long list of games to look at over the coming weeks. So there should be plenty of videos going up in the next few weeks, and plenty of titles to show. As I said, some of them retail, some of them Greenlight, some of them early access, some of them not confirmed for Steam as of yet, but sort of very likely, nudge nudge, wink wink. And so we thought we'd just put together this little video catching you up and telling you what we'd been up to, but also looking at a couple of games that we thought were standout titles from the Expo. So one of the first games we played there actually was the follow-up to Stronghold Crusader. So Stronghold Crusader 2 by Firefly Games. Now, if you're unfamiliar with the Stronghold series, there is a free-to-play version, Stronghold Kingdoms. However, it's a bit of a different genre, available on Steam, and you can play the classic Stronghold Crusader game. And there's something... If you're a fan of Age of Empires, then you'd probably enjoy Stronghold Crusader. They are a real-time strategy game. You build up your castle, or your stronghold, your fort, and you build up your army, and you have to build up your resources, much like any of these games, much like StarCraft, much like Red Alert. And then you have to attack the enemy, obviously. Now, the mode we played required you to have a period of peacetime in order to build up your resources, and then once the peacetime was over, you could go to war. So you could position your forces and collate your attacks ready for when peacetime ended, and then once it did, it was all a matter of, in order to win, it was all a matter of killing the enemy king and protecting yours. Now, me and Dave actually played against each other at the Expo, and it ended up after a long siege of Dave's castle, it ended up with a king-on-king battle, and actually, unfortunately, he beat me, but only by a whisker. So that is one of our standout titles of the Expo. It was great fun playing it, and it is looking like a very promising game. It is currently still in alpha, and there aren't any builds available yet for press, but we will hopefully be getting some footage for you when the beta rolls out. Now, another game that I spent a little time playing and really enjoyed was Frozen Endzone from Mode 7. So, if you're not familiar with Frozen Endzone, you might be familiar with Frozen Synapse, which was another one of their titles that was very popular on Steam. And both of them are sort of turn-based, stop-and-start strategy games. Now, with Frozen Synapse, it's a matter of you are it's a very tactical strategy game. You are playing out moves for your soldiers to try and clear a room of enemies. Well, Frozen Endzone is very similar, only it's mixing that genre with American football. So you have various plays, you have your people positioned on the board, you have the AI positioned on the board, and a ball, you have to get to it, and you have to get it either to one of several scoring zones, or you can get it to the end zone, which will give you a massive point. Now, you do this by setting where you want your people to go in the plays section. You can then test it, and then you can then confirm it and actually do it. And it's simultaneous turns as well, so it's quite interesting. It's not like something like, say, it's got an element of Blood Bowl to it, but it's a little bit more tactical than Blood Bowl. And I like to think that Blood Bowl is very much big on the strategy, but the tactics can go a bit all over the place, whereas Frozen Endzone seems very much a tactics-based game. It looks really promising. The full version wasn't available. It was very much just a sort of taster, where you could test out various different plays, test out various different styles of play. I really enjoyed it. Unfortunately, I was just passing to my player in the end zone to score a point, which would have been the first time someone had done it at the expo. Everyone was very interested to see it, and then the game crashed. So unfortunately, I didn't get to do that. But a great title nonetheless, and at the end of the day, it is pre-alpha. So it is a very promising looking game. Now, another game that we got to check out was Volume, which is by the Mike Biddle, who is the guy behind the excellent indie title Thomas Was Alone. I spent a little time talking to Mike at the expo, and he was telling me about the new title, which cannot be confirmed that it's coming on Steam. So that's that. But the title is a sound-based stealth action game. So essentially you have to get your character through various levels which are policed by robots and other enemies, and you have to try and avoid not only their line of sight, but you've also got to be careful about the amount of sound that you're giving up as well. It's quite early on in the development as far as I'm aware, but it does look a really fun game, and if it's anything near as good as Thomas Is Alone, I'm sure it'll be a massive success. I will try and get a code for that at some point in the near future. Now, another game that we really did enjoy was a game from the indie arcade section, which was a really simple little game called Xenolith, which is a sort of arcade smash 'em up. Now, this was from Snowbolt, and this is a game that is currently on the Greenlight system, so expect it to probably feature in our next Greenlight highlights video, because we haven't seen it until we actually went to the expo, and it's an absolutely fantastically simple game. You have to, in order to destroy the enemies, much like it's sort of like a shoot 'em up, only you're not shooting, you're just going into the enemies and smashing them. But in order to destroy the enemies, you have to match their shape. So you have 3 or 4 different shapes, and they come up in all different sorts of attack patterns, and you have to use different buttons on the keyboard or on a controller in order to switch between a triangle, a square, and a hexagon in order to smash these shapes. And I was speaking to them there, and their level designer is big into really hardcore, punishing puzzle and action games, and they showed off some of the later levels, and the game does get absolutely insane. It's a very visual game, so I do hope to get that at some point in the near future as well and show you guys. It was incredibly simple, such a simple premise, and yet it just worked so well. The hard part was sort of remembering which button corresponded to which shape. Once you got that down, then you were fine, and it was just absolutely great fun. We did, of course, get to try quite a few other games. I'm not going to go into them all now, but I did want to give a little bit of a shout out to Montague or Montagues Mount. I'm not quite sure how to pronounce it. I think that is a game we covered on a Greenlight highlights a while back, but I cannot remember which one. If I go back through the list and it's not on there, then we will cover it in the near future, but I do remember looking at it and talking about it at some point. It's a first-person exploration thriller game in which you are on an Irish island in stormy weather, exploring the environment. Now, the reason that I wanted to mention it is because they are actually one of the few indie devs that was showing off Oculus Rift there, and it looked absolutely great on the Oculus Rift. And it's the first time I've actually tried the Oculus, so that was a great opportunity. And another game I just wanted to mention was War for the Overworld, which some of you may be familiar with already. It's been on early access for a while, and quite a few high-profile people have been looking at, such as Hannah from the Yogscast. They were showing off their latest build there, and the guys were really pleasant, really nice guys, really accommodating, and the game looks fantastic. Anyway, that's all for pretty much everything we covered at Eurogamer that I want to speak about now. As I said, we played a lot more, and we will be getting codes as and when possible, and I will mention as and when whether they were Eurogamer games or not. Thank you for watching the videos always. Please do check out what's coming out in the next few days, and take it easy.
Hi.